Welcome back. Tens of millions of taxpayer dollars have gone to supporting illegal migrants entering our country illegally, including mental health services, legal and cultural orientation programs, connections to social services, and return travel to their home countries. That's according to a new report from the House Judiciary Committee. Joining me now is Florida Congresswoman Laurel Lee. She is a member of the House Judiciary, Homeland Security, and House Administration Committees. Congresswoman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. What can you tell us about what the Judiciary Committee has learned in terms of all of this money, taxpayer dollars, going to illegals?
So what we know is that the Biden administration has been abusing the parole and asylum process throughout the administration to let millions of people into this country who should not be here, who have no lawful basis to be here. And this report details exactly what the federal government has been doing with these people. And so we know they've been providing housing, they've been providing services, even legal counsel in some cases. And it shows that millions of dollars are being expended by our government to take care of these people who should not even be in our country in the first place. And what's important to understand is that our resources here are finite. So when this administration continues to spend and spend on people that are not even here in our country lawfully, those are dollars that we don't have to help everyday American families who are struggling with inflation and just trying to pay their basic household expenses.
Yeah, no, I understand all that. I'm just wondering why the administration is spending all of this taxpayer money on illegal migrants. I mean, the administration now says it strongly opposes the SAVE Act. You and your colleagues have been talking about the SAVE Act now for a while. This act would require proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections. That sounds practical. You're not allowed to vote if you're not an American citizen. But the Democrats and the White House say it is already illegal for non-citizens to vote, and the alleged justification for this bill is based on easily disproven falsehoods. So how do you respond? The SAVE Act is aiming to purge non-citizens from our voter rolls and ensure only American citizens have a say in our election process. A number of Democrats, however, are speaking out against it.
Well, and the SAVE Act is something that should have universal support. This is a bill that basically says you are not entitled to vote in our elections unless you're a citizen of this country. That should be something that every American, certainly every member of Congress, supports. And what we're seeing is that Democrats are opposing it, that they apparently believe that this isn't something that we need to focus on and ensure is happening. So what the SAVE Act also does is ensure that election officials have access to the information and tools they need to keep their voter rolls clean. So the first step is ensuring that it is crystal clear that only U.S. citizens can vote in U.S. elections. But the second step is making sure that elections officials can actually access databases like Social Security, like Homeland Security, to ensure that they can check and see if somebody registers to vote, that they are, in fact, a citizen of this country. So there is no legitimate reason to oppose that kind of thinking and that kind of law unless, in fact, they do want people who are not citizens of this country to be able to slip through the cracks and vote in our elections. So,
well, I mean, can you enforce any of this? I mean, you're an elected official. Can you do anything about it, or are we going to have illegals voting in November?
So we can. And so in many states, in Florida, for example, we actually have dedicated law enforcement officials who investigate and prosecute people who commit election crimes. So it absolutely is something that can and should be enforced, that these folks are not allowed lawfully to vote in our elections. If they do, it is a crime. And again, a basis that if the Biden administration were doing their job, people who are in this country, particularly those who are in this country committing crimes, should be deported for doing so. So if the Biden administration would simply enforce and follow the laws of the United States, none of this would be happening. But House Republicans are committed to ensuring that we're doing everything possible to ensure election integrity and that we have an election in November that Americans can be confident in.
All right. Well, we'll be watching the work in that regard. The Republican National Committee, meanwhile, has adopted former President Trump's official platform. They did so yesterday, promising to seal the southern border, carry out the largest deportation in American history. It promises tax cuts, fewer regulations, lower inflation. What is your reaction? And give us a sense of what you're expecting going into the big convention now, just less than a week away.
Well, we are all looking forward to being at the convention. I think President Trump has set out a vision for the United States that the American people are so ready to embrace. And all of those things, Americans want a secure border. They want to see us taking steps to curb inflation and stop the out-of-control spending. I think President Trump has done an exceptionally good job at identifying the key things we need to do to turn this country around, and that the convention is going to be an opportunity for Republicans to really come together, talk about that vision, and share that vision with the American people. We've seen enthusiasm for President Trump continue to grow and grow in the weeks that are coming up, and I think it is going to be a great opportunity for us to really come together around that message. And of course, the other thing that we've seen is that President Biden is totally unfit for re-election. The question really is, should he even be in office today? I think we're all seeing that the answer to that is no, that he's simply not up for the job. So I think the convention is going to be a great opportunity for us to show America that contrast, that we have a presidential nominee who is ready and able to take this country in the right direction and give Americans the policies that they want.
Yeah, well, we will be at the convention broadcasting live all week, so we will see you there. Congressman, thank you very much. Laurel Lee joining us this morning.